What's up, college football fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show. Today, joined by Jared and Adrian from the Alamo Dome Audible, and we are about to jump into this Conference USA Texas rivalry week between
Yes.
UTSA and the UNT Mean Green. And before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football, G5 football, any or all of the above, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. All right, fellas. Well, before we get into too much, I mean, the week's here. I know Adrian hates North Texas. I know Jared does too, and I hate UTSA. There's no way to sugarcoat it. We're all haters of the others, but man, what a big week, and there's just you know just so much on the line. But Jared, pass it to you first. I mean, what are your feelings about this week, and where's your headspace at?
I think my main takeaway is like how good this is for both schools, but also the AAC, right? Something I meant to say on our podcast this week, but I forgot to, is the AAC will elevate games like week of, right? If it turns out to be a bigger matchup than they expected in the preseason, like they can move those slots around. Conference USA, I don't think does that at all. So I think a game like this in the AAC would probably get bumped up maybe from ESPNU to ESPN2 or something like that. So I think continuing to build this rivalry and have both schools be really competitive and in the hunt for conference championships and stuff like that is really a win-win. You know, obviously all of us want our alma maters to win, but I think there's going to be a positive outcome for everybody because when these games between these two teams matter, you're going to get a lot more people invested in either program and higher attendance, better eyeballs, and just helps the conference and help the teams kind of establish themselves at the top of the G5.
Yeah, this is the biggest and most important game in this rivalry history, in this rivalry series. This is the 10th time that we've met up, but never before, maybe once before in our very first matchup, have the stakes been equally large on either side of the football. So both teams only had one loss in CUSA whenever we first met up on the field in 2013. And then since then, it seems like one team's got a lot going for it. The other team, maybe not so much. This year, the stakes are enormous, fighting for the top slot in Conference USA. Both teams undefeated in Conference USA. And so, I mean, it's juicy, man. Not only do you get bragging rights, you might get home field advantage in the CUSA championship. This might be a preview for it. And the winner might get home field advantage. This game is huge, man. The stakes have never been so big for UTSA UNT.
Man, it really is a G5. I feel like a heavyweight fight. Just especially in Conference USA. I mean, it's got to be game of the week in Conference USA. I would think, but yeah, I mean, but man, it's crazy. I know Miles is throwing bombs on Twitter and
What? No way.
he's promising to meet people in the parking lot and but yeah, I mean it's going it's a blaze, it's afoot. So yeah, so much on the line, which is not normal, like Adrian, like you were saying, and usually it's like last year. I mean,
one or the other.
Yeah, our season was all but dead in the water, and you guys were, on to, a historic season, obviously, yeah. So this time it matters for both, and man, what a lot of excitement. I do kind of wish it was at the end of the season. I mean, it's kind of like to get so amped, and then like the next game, it's like from a fan's perspective, it's like, oh man, nothing's really going to top this for the rest of the year, unless you make the conference championship game or something. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So kind of jumping in on the offensive side of the ball of UTSA, Jared, what do you think needs to happen for UTSA offensively to just keep the ship moving and pull away?
Yeah, so I mean, I think most people that subscribe to you probably have kept up with UTSA pretty well this season, so they probably have seen that UTSA's been phenomenal on offense. One of the top offenses statistically in the country. Frank Harris, I'm not sure if he's still at the number one spot, but for most of the season, he's been the top passer in NCAA football, which still feels so surreal to have those words come out of my mouth. Even as someone who's been a long time believer in Frank Harris as a quarterback, that's still crazy to kind of conceptualize. But, looking back to last week at FIU, they only won by 20 points when they were favored by 33. So, I guess a bit of a letdown of a performance in that regard. So I think the main thing they need to clean up heading into this game is just be a little bit more crisp in the passing game. Frank had a couple of overthrows. There were several drop passes. A couple missed protections on the offensive line. A few of those things kind of added up for that game to, I guess, have a final score closer than what the actual like kind of play-by-play results indicated a score could have been. And obviously, the Mean Green are a great team. They have a great running game that's probably going to shorten the number of possessions that UTSA is going to have. And I know statistically the defense hasn't been that great for UNT this year, but I still have a lot of respect for Phil Bennett, some great playmakers on defense, Katie Davis, Rich Tejada, all those guys. So I think that's the main thing, is like not squandering opportunities by making mistakes that are within UTSA's own control is going to be the key for them.
Yeah, I think most UTSA fans and UTSA players and personnel would all be in agreement that they haven't quite put together that complete game, at least not yet. We've gotten close to it, but there's been little things, whether it's penalties, whether it's issues on the sideline with coaching, guys not knowing when they are and aren't supposed to be on the field, right? We've had some errors like that. Frank Harris maybe missing on some throws, just being a little bit off that day. Even whenever he's off, he's got a 300-yard day, but it happens. We haven't seen that full 4 quarters of really just crisp, clean offensive football. We're waiting for the peak to come, and it's still in front of us. Jeff Traylor keeps saying our best football is in front of us, and that's what he means, is that he wants to see a full 4 quarters out of this team, not just the offense, but all 3 phases. And it seems like we inch a little bit closer with each and every single week. So I'm hoping we put it together against UNT, because it's going to be necessary.
Yeah, from a North Texas fan's perspective, my biggest fear is obviously, no surprise here, is Frank Harris, and the fact that he was playing blind all last season and now he can finally see. Yeah, that's crazy to think that was really the case. But I mean, it's incredible what he's doing, and I mean, I applaud his game from a distance when we're not playing him. But I mean, gosh, I don't know how you scheme against that from a North Texas defensive perspective, just because obviously it's different offenses and he's a way different quarterback than the late great Colt Brennan. But if you're a G5 football fan and been watching it for years, and whenever I watch UTSA play, it's just like a great QB and 3 loaded receivers. And it's just like, not to mention Frank Harris can pull down with his legs and just tear you up, which that's unfortunately North Texas has had trouble stopping mobile quarterbacks. I hope they spy twice with 2 people. I'm not joking. I mean, you got to spy twice with him. I don't know if one's going to do it. And, so I don't know. I'm real. That concerns me, just the passing game. And then Frank's ability to take over a game with his legs too. I mean, it's really concerning, just how, with Frank Harris's greatness and the weapons he has to throw to. So we'll see. But what do you feel like, kind of going to the North Texas side of the ball offensively, Jared? What do you feel that North Texas brings to the table that gives you reasons for concern?
I think just the physicality of the offensive line. You watch those big offensive linemen pull out in space, and they just look so powerful on their pulls, right? And they're going to give you like a real blow when they meet you at the point of attack, the line of scrimmage. And that was the problem for UTSA last year, is they didn't answer the call from a physicality standpoint against North Texas, right? Like they just kind of folded and they let themselves get pushed around the line of scrimmage, which was not something they had a problem with until that game, surprisingly. So I think you got to give the Mean Green offensive line a lot of credit. And I know there's been some changes there. I think they're playing some first-year starters on the offensive line. But, I mean, you turn the film on, not only is it the offensive linemen that are hitting hard and bringing the power, but the running backs as well. I think obviously the backs all have a lot of game-breaking speed. It's funny to look at like the long runs that the running backs have had for North Texas, all 3 or 4 of them. And you see like 50-yard runs, 60-yard runs, 70-yard runs. So obviously they have speed, but they run with a low pad level, and UTSA's really struggled with tackling this year. So I think that's probably the key of the game on defense for UTSA, is to, deliver blow, not receive it, and wrap up, gang tackle, and, make sure those 5-10-yard runs don't turn into something more. Because I think North Texas running backs completely have the ability to maximize that if UTSA is not on their game as far as tackling goes.
100%, man. If they break past the first level and get out to open field, it's going to be really scary. And UTSA has let a lot of ball carriers get past them on that first level, and you even see us get into the backfield, but not being able to bring down the ball carrier in the backfield. And so what will happen is that what should have been negative plays now going in between the sticks for a couple of yards of positive gain. And if they can break past that and they get into the open field, yeah, it's scary. You talk about how great the wide receiver room is at UTSA. And I think the exact same thing when I look at the running backs room at UNT. The difference is all of our wide receivers are upperclassmen. All of y'all's running backs are sophomores still. I mean, it's just like all these young guys that are extremely talented, extremely fast, play with enormous physicality. I mean, this is a scary group that y'all have in the backfield. And it's not to take anything away from Austin Ani as well. You know, he plays within himself. He's a fantastic game managing quarterback. He doesn't overexert. Sometimes he takes some chances. That's why he's got 8 interceptions on the season. But for the most part, he plays within himself and he does the right things that the offense needs to do to win the game. And it's credit to Seth Luttrell and the great job that he does coaching and disciplining these guys. But that running back room is just so ferocious. Look at how well y'all ran the ball. I look at how poorly we've tackled throughout the season, and that's definitely the biggest advantage for UNT to take.
Yeah, and I'm going to steal a couple of tidbits from the Alamo Dome Audible that I've been listening to. So, yeah, I guess, my hope is that knowing, again, listening to you guys, I know that you guys don't practice tackling during practice time. So I'm hoping that will play to North Texas' advantage, like you guys were talking about with the running backs, and hopefully offensive line can move some bodies and get that going. Because, and again, to what Jared's comment earlier today when I listened to that, us North Texas fans, we give Coach Luttrell a lot of flack, but you got to give it to him. He does change his identity when it needs to be. I mean, he's an air out guy, but now the whole hashtag thing is run the damn ball. And yeah, that's what you've got to do. That's just what the cards are dealt right now with the horses in the stable, I guess, that Coach Luttrell has in his offense. So yeah, hopefully you can lean into that because, I feel like I'm quoting Jared at this point, but when North Texas gets some momentum and maybe a bit of a lead, Ani can look pretty good, but you get put in a position, you're down a possession, maybe 2 possessions. I don't know, especially against a team like UTSA. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel confident in that scenario as a fan, but so, yeah, I think, just hopefully that run game can, from a North Texas side, right, hopefully, can, do what it's been doing against but this is a big test. North Texas hasn't played a team and beat anybody that has a winning record yet. They've played people that with winning records, I think, but they haven't beat anybody with a winning record. So, it's UTSA is a different beast, and so we'll see. But anyway, moving to the defensive side of the ball, Jared, what do you see from what do you think needs to happen from the UTSA defense to optimize play for them on Saturday?
Well, I think they've been pretty good against the run for the most part in the front seven. Hasn't always looked that way because, like Adrian said earlier, there's a lot of times that they've got a running back stop dead or rights in the backfield. Looks like should be a loss of 3 or 4, and there's a missed tackle and they get 2 yards. Right, still a positive play for the defense. Right, that's not a successful play for the offense, but it hasn't been as dominating of a defense up front as it possibly could have been. But I think like the plan for UTSA has got to be to stack the box. I think you got to dare Austin Ani to beat you over the top, right? You don't want to let these amazing running backs just, pick up 5 yards in a cloud of dust every other carry. They did move some defensive linemen and some linebackers around for this game, so that's pretty interesting. Ronald Triplett is a Kansas State transfer. He was kind of playing at the defensive tackle position, didn't really break out, played a little bit more at the will linebacker position against FIU and played pretty well. So they're going to stick with him there, and they moved Jamori Robinson from that will linebacker down to a defensive tackle position, which I think is a better natural fit for him, and that's where he played at the JUCO level. So that's going to be interesting as well to see if moving Robinson down to that defensive tackle position will allow him to be a little bit more disruptive because he hasn't really had the sack output that we kind of maybe expected him to have. At least a handful of sacks this year. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to watching, of how that personnel change is going to benefit UTSA. But I think that's really the key to the game, right? I feel pretty strongly, as we mentioned on our podcast this week, that Corey Mayfield and Troy Fortune are going to be pretty good in those one-on-one scenarios with North Texas receivers. So for me, this game all comes down to what the front seven for UTSA can do on defense to, just keep the UNT offense away from those kind of third and short scenarios where they could run or pass on third down. And you want to force them to deal with the Alamo Dome crowd noise.
Mm-hmm.
And have to make that 7-yard throw through the air with pressure in Ani's face.
Yeah, definitely. You've definitely got to rely on a little bit of Alamo Dome crowd noise for sure. And look, this defense has really struggled to force turnovers this season. And I think if you're going to win this game against North Texas, you have got to win the turnover battle. And so for me, that's the biggest challenge that I'm posing to this defense this week. To go out there, get an interception, force a fumble, get the ball back in Frank Harris's hands. I think that's going to prove to be the difference on the scoreboard, whichever team can force that turnover and then capitalize afterward.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that. I mean, just kind of echoing what Jared said. I'd load it up. I'd load the box up and, engage 8. I mean, almost, right? But, just make Ani, be the man Saturday. And
Right.
I think that would be, I mean, I'm sure the coaches are probably scheming something up like that, I would think. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would think too. All right, moving to the North Texas side, defensive wise, Jared, I mean, so what gives you pause for concern, and just what do you think needs to happen from the North Texas defensive side of the ball for them to come out successfully?
I think if UTSA chooses to throw at Rich Tejada, that would be a big mistake. And as good as Frank Harris is and UTSA's 3 receivers are, I think Rich has proven that he is that next level kind of cornerback, and I think he could pick one off, right? I don't think that UTSA has played a lot of corners this year that have the talent that Tejada has, based off what I've seen from him this year. So that's a big matchup that I'm certainly watching. And I think, Katie Davis is just so good in the middle of the field, right? Like, UTSA's run game's been kind of sporadic, I guess, at best this year. As people probably know, UTSA's dealt with an insane run of injuries at the offensive tackle position. I think they're down to like their 6th option, who's a converted defensive tackle. He played pretty great against FIU. But the running backs themselves have been beat up as well. They played a redshirt freshman for almost all the FIU game. So just like kind of, and I feel like the run offense is so predicated off reps and chemistry, knowing when to chip block, when to go to the next level, when the running back's going to cut outside, whatever. That's the injuries have like really held them back there. So I think if UTSA doesn't, come out of the gate, just with incredible success rushing the ball, I think Katie Davis could definitely have a huge game and have, I think he had like 19 tackles last week or something crazy like that. So I can see him having another big performance like that, because UTSA has been kind of iffy about blocking linebackers this year.
Yeah, and then on top of Katie Davis, I think we forgot to shout him out on our own podcast yesterday, but Larry Nixon, a linebacker as well, pretty menacing, and I think he actually led UNT in tackles against UTSA last season. And so that duo back there for y'all's linebackers is pretty beefy. Larry Nixon, I think, is only a junior, so he's going to be there for another year. We're going to have to keep dealing with him for a little while. So yeah, y'all definitely got the juice up front to take advantage of our holes at offensive line. And I think it might be a little bit of the same thing that UTSA's got in mind. I mean, it's a lot easier for UTSA to say, hey, we want Austin Ani to beat us with his hands, right? And beat us through the air. And it's another thing entirely for UNT to say Frank Harris is going to have to beat us through the air. But that's what's going to end up having to happen, probably, because y'all are probably be able to eliminate our rushing game a hell of a lot more than FIU wasn't able to eliminate it at all, right? I'd imagine it's going to be pretty null and void going against UNT the way that it's been in prior weeks. And it's going to be up to Frank Harris to get out there and make the magic happen, as he does week in and week out. But it's not going to be easy. And, Jared talks about Rich Tejada. You got to be careful throwing to him. The good thing is he can't hold all three of UTSA's wide receivers at once. He can only pick one to hold. And so I think we've got that going for us. But yeah, I think that linebacker group between Katie Davis and Larry Nixon is beefy and it's mean, and they're going to give the backfield a lot of issues.
Yeah, and obviously I know UTSA is struggling with offensive line injuries. I mean, it's a pretty beat up group currently. I don't know if is Tatafu coming back. Do you guys know for this game?
Dude,
we feel pretty good about it.
We feel good
all
about
right.
it, but they'll say
Yeah.
day to day. And on that note, dude, I'll also say, we talk about the magic of Frank Harris, but he has shown vulnerability in the collapsing pocket. Yes, he's very mobile and can move the ball, but he doesn't always make the right decision as to where to tuck and run towards, or if he's going to tuck and run. Sometimes he tries to buy too much time that just simply doesn't exist. He's got a very, very bad habit of not throwing the ball away. He's got an even worse habit of never, ever sliding whenever he scrambles. So I do think that you see a more fragile Frank Harris in that collapsing pocket. His decision-making can be a little sporadic. You guys can definitely take advantage of that.
Well, if Officer Harris pulls you over in the next 5 years, I hope he remembers that you criticize him when I think Officer Harris hung the moon. So, but yeah, no. So in all seriousness, I guess North Texas' best shot would be to, if there's any, gaping holes in that offensive line due to injury, take advantage of that and make it as hard as you can for Frank Harris. And I mean, Adrian, yeah, I guess you could say, obviously he's looked unperfect at times during being flushed, but I still feel like, given the offensive line woes, dude, I mean, he's 68.8%. I mean, he's freaking, I mean, I don't know. I don't see it to the level you see it, I guess, but I get what you're saying. And I think that would be a big factor. Make it really, it's a tall task, but make it as hard as you can for Frank Harris to feel comfortable in his home at the Alamo Dome. But so we'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, it'll be fun. All right, Jared, we'll pass this to you real quick. So in all seriousness, who needs, is a win more important to UTSA or North Texas? Because I mean, UTSA, I know we're both on the way out here, so you can't really say this, but UTSA is chasing their second conference championship back-to-back years, which you're kind of building a dynasty at that point. Kind of unfortunate timing that we're leaving right there. You don't see how it plays out past this year. Obviously, the AAC is a different animal, but UNT's never won the conference in Conference USA. So, I mean, who do you think this game is more important to, UTSA or UNT, and then getting the win?
Wow.
I think if I had to pick, I would probably say North Texas. But outside of the long-term picture stuff, I just feel like the Mean Green's remaining schedule in conference play is a lot tougher than UTSA, because UTSA already got the win over Western Kentucky. So I think UTSA's got a little bit more of a cushion if they're to drop, whether it's this game or a future one as well, right? Because UAB's already lost, Western Kentucky's already lost, Rice has already lost, right? So if North Texas does take this one, they still have to get through Western Kentucky, UAB, and I think Rice as well, who's looked pretty good, right? So I think by nature of that alone, I think it's more important for North Texas to get out on the right foot and get that fourth win in conference play, just because the remaining schedule is tougher than UTSA's. I think UTSA probably going to get some more help along the way throughout these rest couple of weeks, right? Especially like Louisiana Tech lost their linebacker Grubbs. I can't remember his first name right now. So the rest of the schedule is shaping up pretty well for UTSA, right? So they've got a little bit more cushion than North Texas. So that's why I'd probably pick the Mean Green. But obviously, it's a very huge game for both programs, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. So I would coincide with Jared in that it probably is more important for UNT to get out of here with a win for the sake of the rest of the schedule. But then I also think of it from like the serious matchup and the serious history standpoint. Like it was really, really great for North Texas knocking off undefeated Roadrunners last year. But what did that really do for North Texas besides get them excited to knock off the undefeated Roadrunners?
Kept the coach around.
And very good point. He kept Seth for another season. But I think back to that very first matchup in 2013, UTSA literally robbed North Texas of West Division title and competing for a conference championship at that point, right? And so North Texas has an opportunity to sort of, to a degree, maybe get that back if they can get one off on UTSA this week and then go on to get into the conference championship game. So maybe there's a little bit of that bad blood there. But dude, UTSA losing that game last year, being undefeated and losing it in the manner that they lost, right, to not even show up to Denton, Texas in that 12th game. I think it might be circled and highlighted with a few more layers of ink on UTSA's schedule than it is on UNT's.
All right, I'll do this statement, pass it around. We'll end here, and we'll do a point prediction if you guys are filling up to that. And the second thing I want to get into, though, I don't know if you guys are with me with this or not, but obviously we spend our free time doing podcasts for the schools that we went to, and the nation doesn't really, aside from last year with UTSA, this is not national brands we're talking about. So we care. We're vested, right? Dude, I feel so much. I don't know why I let UNT have this much control over my emotions. But man, whenever they lose and especially against a UTSA, I mean, I'm not going to be right, until I don't know when. Like, I mean, it's going to really F with me. It's going to F with me. And, I kind of want to hear your guys' thought if you guys sharing that, because I always feel like, me personally, I feel like every other fan in the world, like they may express it differently on Twitter, but I feel like I internalize it. I just like die inside, just totally just like dark thoughts thinking about everything. But anywho, but that being said, I'm trying to mentally prepare myself, and I'm not just trying to cop out here. I mean, I'm thinking like a 42-17 UTSA. But
Wow.
I'll pass it to Jared from there. And
Miles won't be happy with you, man.
He won't. He'll see me in Lot C, I'm sure.
I'll bring the boxing gloves for you.
Miles is the best. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So this for me is very much like a gut versus brain type of deal, right? Like, my brain tells me that this game should be close because I think what North Texas brings to the table for their strengths is a pretty good clash against UTSA's weaknesses, especially that tackling issue on defense. So that's a thing that tells me this game's going to be close. But my gut tells me that Jeff Traylor just despises Seth Lachelle in North Texas for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I just got this impression. I don't know if it's legit or not.
I think it is.
Like Adrian said, I do think that this is one that they're going to take personally. They really downplayed it in media availability this week. It's just another game on the schedule.
Right.
But, I don't really buy it. I think they really want to get revenge for getting embarrassed and humiliated last year. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. They got to hand it to them, right? It was really, really ugly. So my gut does tell me that UTSA wins going away, but I can't find it in myself. Maybe what you were saying about the emotional attachment, I'd rather have a better outcome than my official prediction, right? Than vice versa. I think that's why people, like, UTSA fans are kind of upset with the FIU performance because they looked at the 33-point spread and like, oh, we only won by 20. It's like, God, how spoiled have we gotten? But I think that my prediction on the podcast was UTSA 34, UNT 30. So that'd be a cover for North Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer the other part of your question about, letting the game eat away at you, I used to be like that for sure. It used to be bad. It used to be like when Jared loses or when UTSA loses, don't talk to Jared for the rest of the day. Yeah. But at some point, I just realized like there's like, why would I get mad about something I can't control? Like, I'm not out there calling plays. And I'll tell you what made a change for me was there was a specific series when UTSA last played in Miami before last week. So against FIU, this would have been 2017, I think, where they ran like a halfback dive 4 plays in a row from the 2-yard line against FIU and got stuffed all 4 times. Like, it just clicked something inside of me where I was like, why would I let myself get so emotionally invested in something so stupid that I have no control over? If I'm going to get mad at something, I want to get mad at something that I can change and like I can determine or just influence of some sort. I can't let my limited emotional energy get invested into something that I can't do anything about. You gotta let it
Jared
go.
was ready to challenge Frank Wilson for the play calling ability of that team.
Maybe
Lock
Lassie!
City. Let's go, dog. I win. I call the plays, bro. I'm the coach now. Wow. Yeah, 42-17. Pretty outrageous. I have a similar score, but I'm giving UNT a little bit more credit. I had 42-30 is my final prediction. I think we covered the 10-point spread. I think UNT keeps it interesting for probably the better part of 3 quarters. But I do think in the fourth, UTSA gets away from you guys. I think you guys start to get a little bit tired out on defense. I think your running back starts to get a little bit tired out. Frank Harris still flicking that ball downfield, and we get away with it in the fourth quarter. But it'll be back and forth for a little while. I think UNT might even go up right at a certain point in that first half. But I think it's not a dominant, but a convincing win from the Roadrunners by the time it's all said and done. 42-30.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. I'll leave, if I remember, I'll leave a link to the Alamo Dome Audible in the description on this video. If you guys aren't already listening to them, I highly encourage it. It's great content and really, really in depth on the UTSA football program. But guys, thank you all for jumping on with me, and we'll see what happens this Saturday.
All right, thanks to know. It's always a pleasure. Miles, we'll see you in the parking lot. Let's go.
Let's go. Birds up.
Go Mean Green.